good things can be taken too far, and I think I'm starting to reach that point.
I've been thinking about retiring for a couple years, actually.
Luke Nichols returned to the Alaskan wilderness in late 2025, doing what he'd vowed never to do again.
Is it cold out here? Yeah, it's really cold.
No channel announcement, no fanfare, just a lone figure battling a snowstorm.
He's really cool. In the woods, in his sleeping bag.
Good morning. Oh, it's cold.
Something had forced him back, and it wasn't for views. Behind the camera, a quiet devastation had been unfolding for months, unseen by millions.
The hours in the environment was so bad for family life that I just decided I had to do something else.
Whatever drove this decision carried a cost that would haunt him forever. Stay with us to the end to find out. The unexpected return. Luke Nichols stood alone in an Alaskan snowstorm on November 15, 2025, breaking the vow he made to over 15 million subscribers 6 months earlier. And what forced him back would expose a family crisis so devastating it made his own suffering look like preparation. This video, which marked his return, didn't appear on Outdoor Boys. It surfaced quietly on My Life Outdoors, a smaller channel run by his friend Stephen Smith with a blunt title, Camping in Snowstorm with No Tent, No Sleeping Bag. Within minutes, fans recognized Luke Nichols battling whiteout conditions, and the questions exploded. Why was he back? Why wasn't this on his own channel? What could possibly justify breaking his promise? The answer rewrote everything they thought they knew. Stephen's wife, Celesta, had been diagnosed with thyroid cancer earlier in the year. She had surgery in April, which offered brief hope before follow-up tests revealed ductal carcinoma, specifically triple-negative breast cancer, one of the most aggressive forms, that had spread to her lymph nodes. With 4 young children and months of chemotherapy ahead, Stephen stepped away from content creation just as his family needed income most desperately. Luke understood the math immediately. 6 months earlier, he had walked away from his own channel to protect his wife, Rebecca, and their 3 sons, Tommy, Nate, and Jacob, from the relentless pressure of online fame. Returning to the wilderness meant reopening something he had barely escaped, but this time, the risk was not for views. It was for survival. He entered the Alaskan interior late in the day with only hours of daylight left. He built a lean-to against a fallen birch root ball, chopped firewood until darkness swallowed the forest, and cooked moose stew over an open fire as snow buried the campsite. He moved fast, joked through the cold, and explained gear choices in Stephen's style, not his own. This was not a comeback. It was a transfer of lifeline. Every dollar from the video went to Stephen's family. Before the camera cut, Luke asked viewers to subscribe to his friend's channel and keep watching. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, the video reached millions of views, pushed Stephen's channel past 1 million subscribers, and delivered real financial relief at the exact moment it was needed. Fans called it heroic, but what made the gesture unbearable was what it reopened. Wounds Luke had never fully explained, sacrifices hidden from millions of viewers, and a cost so devastating that stepping back into the public eye felt like the only way to justify what he'd already lost. What Luke had walked away from 6 months earlier had been slowly destroying him behind every smile, and it started with a video that broke the internet in May. The goodbye that broke the internet. On May 17, 2025, Luke Nichols uploaded a 9-minute video titled Goodbye, and within hours, millions of viewers realized they'd been watching a man disappear for 18 months without understanding what was killing him. Luke sat calmly in front of the camera and thanked viewers for more than a decade of support. He was stepping away to protect his family. Fame had followed them home. Ordinary grocery trips became public encounters. His 3 sons were recognized everywhere. Safety concerns crept into conversations that never used to include them. What began as adventure sharing had become constant surveillance of a family that never asked for it. The channel sat at over 15 million subscribers, with videos regularly hitting tens of millions of views. Over 11 years, he'd produced more than 1,100 videos, a massive catalog representing thousands of hours documenting wilderness skills and family life. Nothing about the metrics suggested a collapse, So why did this exact moment force a decision so final it ended everything overnight? Luke offered no specifics about what had changed. He mentioned focusing on family, faith, and himself, but gave no details. He promised to finish the remaining projects later, then step away completely. No sponsor message, no merchandise pitch, no fundraising effort. The stark absence of anything promotional made it feel irreversible. The response was immediate. Within 24 hours, the video passed 2 million views. Over 50,000 comments flooded in before Luke disabled the section, with families describing how outdoor boys had become part of their daily routines, background comfort, and shared traditions. Many couldn't understand why someone would walk away at peak success without a visible disaster forcing the choice. But the disaster had been visible for months, just never acknowledged. Online forums had been tracking changes since late 2023. Luke appeared on camera less and less. Direct explanations and personal storytelling faded, replaced by distant voiceovers focused on scenery rather than presence. When Luke did appear, viewers noticed details he never addressed. Darker circles under his eyes, slower movements, longer pauses between words. Frame-by-frame comparisons showed observable changes. Videos from 2022 showed Luke handling equipment quickly with high energy. By early 2024, his movements slowed noticeably. In one February video, he paused mid-sentence for several seconds, something absent from earlier content. Luke never mentioned illness in the goodbye video, never complained about exhaustion, never explained the visible shift millions witnessed over 18 months. He simply said he needed to step back, thanked everyone, and signed off with a montage of family moments fading to black. The question haunted everyone. What had happened behind those smiles that made walking away the only option? The answer had been destroying Luke in plain sight for 2 years, and the evidence was hiding in every frame. If you want to follow this story all the way through, make sure to hit like and stay with us, because the next part reveals what really broke him: the body breaking down. For almost 2 years, Luke Nichols was slowly disappearing from his own channel. The evidence was hiding in plain sight, documented frame by frame by viewers Luke never knew were watching. And what they discovered revealed a physical collapse so severe that the real mystery wasn't why he left, but how he survived as long as he did. Dedicated fans began compiling statistics Luke never addressed. From 2022 to mid-2024, dedicated fans tracking uploads documented significant drops in on-camera appearances, with some months showing half the personal screen time of previous years. His once regular direct-to-camera explanations almost vanished entirely by early 2024. Many episodes opened with brief greetings, then shifted into long stretches of silent footage or distant voiceovers that felt disconnected from the person viewers had followed for years. The visual transformation matched the numbers. Screenshots compared across years showed someone physically diminishing, deeper shadows, paler complexion, slower speech, and heavier movements. Cuts on his hands appeared in multiple videos without healing. Clothing looked repeatedly worn. His teaching energy faded into something mechanical, as though completing tasks rather than sharing experiences. What disturbed viewers most was the silence. The workload explained why the decline accelerated. For nearly a decade, Outdoor Boys operated without a professional crew. Luke planned expeditions, filmed in extreme conditions, carried heavy gear, navigated remote terrain, and then returned home to edit every episode himself. No breaks existed in the system. Missed uploads meant algorithm penalties. Simultaneously, Luke maintained his legal practice at Nichols Law in Fairfax, Virginia. Court records confirm he remained an active attorney through 2023 and 2024, handling traffic violations, DUI cases, and misdemeanor criminal defense. Court appearances, client meetings, deadlines, and mental precision layered on top of physical exhaustion. The schedule was impossible. Lawyer in the morning, driving hours to remote filming locations in the afternoon, shooting content until dark, editing past midnight, then back to court the next morning. Law demands mental sharpness and strict deadlines. Content creation requires physical endurance and emotional presence. Together, they formed an exhausting cycle offering no recovery time. This wasn't gradual fatigue. This was systematic deterioration, accelerating month after month. Luke's complete refusal to address it made one thing devastatingly clear. He no longer had the energy to perform emotions he didn't feel, and something beyond exhaustion was consuming him from the inside. But the physical collapse was only half the crisis. The other half was unfolding in public spaces he could no longer control, and it involved the three people he'd do anything to protect. When fame became a cage. As Outdoor Boys grew past 15 million subscribers, the boundary between viewer and family dissolved. The boys appeared in hundreds of videos over a decade, making them recognizable in public spaces. Photos of family encounters circulated on social media, shared by fans who didn't consider the privacy implications for children who never chose public life. Tommy, Nate, and Jacob had no personal social media accounts. They never promoted themselves. They never asked for public attention. But their regular appearances in Outdoor Boys videos, combined with their father's over 15 million subscribers, created a familiarity that followed them everywhere offline. Longtime fans could identify each son by voice alone, recognize their mannerisms, and knew their personalities from hundreds of hours of footage. The line between viewer and family had dissolved completely. Online behavior confirmed how dangerous the boundary collapse had become. Forum discussions dissected the boys' personalities in unsettling detail. Some viewers felt entitled to ask invasive questions about their lives. Fan communities sometimes crossed boundaries with invasive speculation, leading moderators to implement stricter privacy rules about discussing the family's personal details. The damage was already done. The channel itself had transformed in ways Luke couldn't reverse. As Outdoor Boys exploded from modest camping content to 15 million subscribers, the boys' screen time increased dramatically. They evolved from background helpers learning outdoor skills to central performers carrying entire segments. By 2023, Tommy launched his own secondary channel, Outdoor Tom, which gained over 1 million subscribers within 9 months. The success was impressive, but it forced Luke to confront a question no metric could answer. Were his sons choosing this life, or simply inheriting a role they'd never consciously selected? What started as wholesome family bonding had quietly become something Luke could no longer justify. The channel delivered financial security, but it now threatened privacy, safety, and normal childhood development. Every successful upload pulled his family deeper into exposure they couldn't escape. Fame had become a cage with bars built from view counts and subscriber milestones. Luke finally understood that protecting his family meant destroying everything he'd built, because the machine that made them successful was the same machine making them vulnerable. And that realization would force a choice that would cost him everything, but not in the way anyone expected. If this story is hitting you, share it now, because the next part reveals the impossible decision Luke had to make. The foundation that made walking away possible. The choice Luke faced in 2025 wasn't the first time he'd walked away from security for something that mattered more. Born in 1978 in Anchorage, Alaska, Luke learned young that survival meant knowing when to turn back, even when the summit was in sight. Faith reinforced those instincts. His lifelong membership in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints taught him to prioritize family above career, service above attention, simplicity above excess. After a mission in Japan, law school at George Mason, and co-founding a successful legal practice in Virginia, Luke had built the conventional American dream. He'd already abandoned that dream once in 2015 when he left law for YouTube. Now, a decade later, he faced the same choice in reverse: walk away from the platform he'd built, or watch it destroy the family he'd built it for. The Alaska wilderness had taught him how to survive. Faith would teach him what was worth surviving for. The impossible choice. While Luke never detailed private family conversations publicly, the visible pattern of events suggested mounting concerns at home. The public goodbye hid a private crisis that had already been unfolding inside the Nichols household. long before Luke ever sat in front of a camera to say farewell. Rebecca noticed the change first. Wilderness trips that once energized Luke now sent him home depleted in ways rest could not fix. He returned quieter, thinner, and mentally distant. Nights became fragmented by upload deadlines and performance checks, editing sessions stretching past 3 in the morning because the schedule demanded it. The balance he once maintained between law, family, and content had collapsed into a cycle of obligation with no recovery time. The conversations about stopping did not start dramatically. Rebecca suggested small changes first: fewer uploads, simpler trips, hiring an editor to share the load. Luke resisted, not out of pride, but fear. He felt responsible for the audience, bound by promises he believed he had made. The algorithm punished absence, and consistency had become a rule he was terrified to break. Every delay felt like failure. Every step back felt irreversible. As the channel grew, the pressure multiplied inward. 15 million subscribers did not feel like support anymore. It felt like constant judgment. Even without reading comments, Luke carried imagined reactions into every decision. A video that underperformed felt personal. A shift in metrics felt like disapproval. The audience no longer lived on the screen. It lived in his head. The strain reached the children. Tommy, Nate, and Jacob sensed that something had changed, even if they could not fully name it. Trips that once felt playful became structured around shots, retakes, and forced enthusiasm. Their father was present but distracted. Questions surfaced that Luke struggled to answer. Why did strangers recognize them? Why was everything filmed? When would things feel normal again? Luke had reached the point where success no longer solved anything. His health was visibly declining. His family's privacy was gone. His children were growing up inside a performance they never chose. What he had built was impressive, but it was also consuming him. The final decision was not triggered by a single event. It was the accumulated weight of years that finally exceeded what he could carry. In May 2025, Luke chose to walk away from everything he had spent a decade building to protect what mattered more. He would give his wife peace instead of worry. He would give his sons a childhood not shaped by strangers. Walking away meant losing a decade of work. Staying meant losing his health and his children's privacy. He chose the loss he could survive, the silence and the call. For 3 months after the goodbye, Outdoor Boys stayed frozen at 15 million subscribers. No new uploads, no community posts, no signs of life. Fans began accepting that the channel was truly dead. Then, without warning, Luke uploaded 3 final videos in what felt like someone closing a door carefully, fulfilling a promise before walking away for good. Remote survival trips, family river adventures, off-grid builds. The content arrived with no announcement, no thumbnails signaling a return, no acknowledgement that he was even aware the channel existed anymore. Views surged past millions within days, proving the audience remained devoted despite months of silence. But Luke never engaged with that response. The comment section stayed disabled. No follow-up videos appeared. The 3 uploads stood alone as evidence he'd kept his word. Then silence returned, deeper than before. Life shifted for the Nichols family in ways the camera had never allowed. Rebecca moved through daily routines without calculating whether someone might be filming. Tommy, Nate, and Jacob developed interests outside wilderness skills, exploring who they were when not performing for millions. Luke experienced what he called phantom camera syndrome, catching himself reaching for equipment he'd deliberately left behind. But that reflex gradually faded. The peace lasted months. The balance felt sustainable. The decision seemed final. Until November, when a phone call arrived about his friend's wife fighting 3 cancer diagnoses, and Luke faced a choice that made him question everything he'd sacrificed, because helping Stephen meant reopening wounds he'd barely survived closing. And this time there would be no hiding from what it cost. The calling that explained everything. On December 9, 2025, an announcement buried in routine church communications revealed why Luke had walked away 6 months earlier. And suddenly, Everything made sense. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints announced that Luke Nichols had been appointed to the Young Men General Advisory Council, effective December 1st. The position wasn't a ceremonial recognition of his YouTube fame. It was a global leadership role advising church leadership on guiding teenage boys worldwide, focusing on faith, discipline, family responsibility, and self-reliance, the same principles millions had watched him teach his sons in frozen forests, now applied at a scale that didn't require cameras or algorithms. Luke's selection revealed that church leadership had been watching something audiences never saw. Not the wilderness content that made him famous, but the decade of consistent character behind the videos, the prioritization of family when it conflicted with success, and the willingness to walk away from everything when protecting his children required sacrifice. The timing connected dots fans had been piecing together for months. Luke's May departure suddenly looked less like retreat and more like preparation for a calling that demanded he clear away distractions. His refusal to tease a return made sense if he'd already committed to redirecting influence toward impact that outlasts internet relevance. The backlog of unreleased footage represented a life he'd consciously chosen to keep private because the next chapter didn't require proof visible to strangers. When Stephen's crisis arrived in November, Luke's decision to return briefly aligned perfectly with the values shaping his new role. Service without recognition, supporting families during crisis, using resources to meet immediate needs without expecting anything in return. He filmed one video, ensured every dollar went to Stephen's household, then disappeared again because the point wasn't comeback or relevance. It was helping someone carry a weight he understood intimately. The church appointment offered something YouTube never could: a clearly defined purpose with eternal significance, impact compounding across generations rather than quarterly metrics, and a legacy built beyond personal visibility. Luke's influence no longer depends on upload schedules. It moves into places cameras never reach, shaping lives without needing proof. Fans who'd mourned the loss of outdoor boys realized they'd been watching the wrong story. The wilderness videos were maybe the point when they aired, but they were also preparation for a calling requiring someone who understood sacrifice, who could walk away from millions of voices to serve in silence, who valued purpose over applause, and who'd already proven he'd choose faith and family over fame when the cost became too high. The hard drives full of unseen footage will likely stay locked away. The channel might remain frozen at 15 million subscribers. But Luke's legacy doesn't live there anymore. It's being built in conversations with young men learning what manhood means, in guidance shaped by someone who's faced real pressure and chosen principle over popularity, in quiet influence rippling through generations without needing cameras to prove it happened. Some stories end when the spotlight shuts off. Luke Nichols' story began when he finally turned the camera away and stepped into a calling that matters more than metrics ever could. What would you sacrifice to protect what matters most? Your platform, your income, or the peace your family desperately needs? And if you had to choose between 15 million subscribers and a purpose that outlasts the internet, which legacy would you build? Drop your answer in the comments section below, and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss another deep dive into the untold stories behind life's biggest decisions. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.